When no one else would. Humanity's stand. Chapter 1, Fractured Light. In a remote corner of the galaxy, nestled among the stark shadows of the Ripleyan Nebula, lay the planet of Eller 7. Once a hopeful colony for humanity, the planet had turned into a refuge for the dispossessed. It was a harsh and difficult place to live, ravaged by storms and the inhospitable ecosystem of alien flora and fauna. Most of the colonial towns were mere clusters of ramshackle buildings, barely held together by grit and determination. Life here was a daily struggle, yet the human colonists understood perseverance born from hardship. From the dusty settlement of New Haven, a few brave souls gathered their supplies, contemplating the heavy task ahead. The urgency of their mission burned in their hearts. They had received a transmission from a remote outpost, word reaching them of a desperate situation. An alien race, known among themselves as the Yelrians, was fleeing the oppressive grip of the Dominion of Light, a ruthless faction that had taken control of the Alien Council. Within weeks, news had radiated outward. Entire civilizations were under siege, their populations systematically purged, their leaders executed or imprisoned. "They've already taken their stronghold in the Inara system," said Alaric, a seasoned engineer with tired eyes that belied his youthful spirit. "If we don't act now, we might not have another chance." The assembly in the square consisted of a dozen colonists. Among them was Alara, a fierce advocate for peace and a former officer in the colonial navy. She stepped forward, the weight of leadership resting heavily on her shoulders. "We are but a small colony, but we understand oppression better than most," she said, her voice strong. "These refugees are fleeing brutal tyranny. We cannot sit idly by and watch lives lost. We must build the Last Asylum, a sanctuary for all who seek it. We'll transform the old mining tunnels into a safe haven, a place where they can rest, regroup, and plan for their future." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Each colonist knew the risks involved. The Dominion was not only technologically superior but merciless in maintaining their grip on power. Still, a shared sense of empathy flowed through them, a testament to humanity's dark history and remarkable capacity for compassion. Chapter 2, The Underground Network. As dusk descended upon New Haven, the first orders of business began. Pairs of colonists joined forces and split off into the dilapidated buildings around the settlement that had once served as community centers and storage facilities. The miners who had all but abandoned the place after a rich seam of ore had been exhausted were now tapping their remaining tools for something far more significant: hope. Day after day, they worked, utilizing old blueprints salvaged from their colonial archives. The miners dug deeper into the bowels of Eller 7, creating makeshift spaces lined with aluminum and reinforced with salvaged debris. They looked for places to hide the entrance, crafting hidden doors disguised as part of the landscape. Meanwhile, with every whispered exchange, the colonists began to gather information about the Dominion and its patrol schedules. Nothing was certain, for the tyrannical regime operated on fear and intimidation, bolstered by superior technology that included sentry drones and patrolling ships. Yet, Alara's strategy placed them ahead. She engaged in covert communications with sympathetic neighboring systems, acquiring food, supplies, and weaponry from those willing to aid in their cause. The locals began to grow restless. One evening, as Alara convened another meeting with the colonists, voices rose in urgency. "We're putting ourselves at risk," shouted Yarrick, a former mechanic, his brow furrowed. "What if we get discovered? We're already living on a knife's edge here." "We've made sacrifices before," Alaric countered, eyes blazing with conviction. "This is about more than just us. If we turn our backs on these refugees, then what are we even doing here? We have to lead by example." Another colonist spoke up. "I've heard stories of Yelrians. They're telepathic. They can see visions. If they arrive here, we should be preparing ourselves to help them, not just hiding. Elara took a breath, weighing their concerns. For every argument against this, I can find 10 stories of those willing to risk it all. We help because it is the right thing to do. Because we must be what we once wished others had been for us. The fire in the settlers sparked once more, and they pledging their hands and hearts to build the last asylum. Chapter 3, First Contact. Weeks turned into months, as the colonists worked tirelessly in secrecy. They toiled day and night, constructing what would become a haven deep within the caverns of Eller 7. Finally, the day of their first rescue mission loomed upon them. The plan was to retrieve a frail, ancient Yelrian leader, Eldon, who had once been the voice of peace among the species, now silenced by the Dominion's iron fist. As dusk melted into night, Elara gathered a handful of her strongest volunteers, each donning makeshift armor crafted from scrap and scavenged tech, hoping to blend in as they made their way to the outskirts near the border with the Dominion-occupied territory. A ship awaited, a small stolen vessel that would take them across the danger lines. Elara's heart raced as they closed in on the rendezvous point. Anxiety and anticipation hung like a cloud over their mission. Once they reached the designated coordinates, she breathed in the chill of evening. Before them lay a cluster of rocks and debris hiding the entrance to an underground enclave. Just then, a small, barely visible figure groaned out from behind the boulders. Eldon, towering only as high as Elara's waist and covered in what remained of his tattered robes, stepped forward. His skin shimmered in the darkness, shades of deep blue radiating against the starlight. A trembling hand reached out toward her. "Earthlings," he murmured, voice rasping but filled with hope. "You come for me?" "Yes, Eldon," Elara replied, kneeling beside him. "We have to move quickly. The Dominion is not far behind." Just as they began to retreat, alarm bells sounded in the distance, piercing the stillness. A searchlight from a Dominion patrol skimmed over the area, sweeping closer to their position. Without a moment's hesitation, Elara signaled for the group to move, and they squeezed through the narrow opening of the tunnel, Eldon's small form trailing carefully behind. "Stay close," she whispered urgently, rushing toward the ship that lay cloaked in the shadows of the rocks. Crisis struck when an unseen drone whirred overhead, its sensors scanning the area with malevolent intent. Alaric, who was posted to guard the group's rear, swiftly aimed a small blaster acquired from a previous trade. When the metallic buzz escalated, he took his shot. The drone sparked and plummeted to the ground, its alarm silenced. "Go! Go!" he yelled frantically, ushering the group toward the vessel. They clambered aboard, panic bubbling, and Elara wasted no time starting the ship. The engines roared to life as Alaric jumped in with a sigh of relief, shutting the door just in time. They were airborne, a heartbeat of freedom pulsating through them. Eldon collapsed against the co-pilot's seat, eyes glazed but filled with gratitude. "You have saved me," he said, voice quavering from exertion. "But so many more." Chapter 4, A Sanctuary is Born. Back in New Haven, the hidden refuge of the Last Asylum began to take shape. Each successful rescue added pressure but resolved their mission. Yelrians, Orchidas, and even a group of Jorians, tall, graceful beings adept at controlling the elements, arrived at the sanctuary, finding solace and support among the human settlers. With every new arrival, an intricate network was built, connections formed between humans and the alien refugees. Together, they shared not just space but knowledge, resources, and culture. Elara initiated workshops aimed at fostering collaboration. Language barriers meant little when it came to pooling creativity. Together they crafted gardens filled with bioluminescent crops, a communal hub brimming with new ideas for sustenance. As time passed, some of the refugees shared their extraordinary abilities. A group of young Yelrian oracles met regularly with children from the colony, imparting dances filled with ancient meaning while seeding wisdom beyond comprehension. Eldon found himself at the center of discussions that revolved around rebuilding, hope, and the future beyond fear. Yet with each new dawn came looming shadows. The Dominion was relentless in its pursuit. They scoured the galaxy, dispatching elite enforcement units, striving to root out insurrections. Rumors circulated of a grander plan. They intended to eradicate any potential threats to their supremacy. Chapter 5: The Last Stand. The tension reached a fever pitch one blustery evening when the surveillance system, hastily assembled from scavenged parts, blared into life. A massive fleet of Dominion ships was spotted, their ominous silhouettes against the darkening horizon triggering panic among the colonists. Elara convened an emergency meeting as fear ruled the air. "They're here," she said, struggling against gravity as all heads turned toward her. "But we will not let fear deter us. We've come too far. We all have something to fight for." A plan emerged, one that deeply resonated with both residents of the colony and the alien inhabitants. They would construct decoys, intricate simulations of their sanctuary designed to distract the Dominion forces while they prepared to evacuate the most vulnerable to the deep tunnels that led to hidden passages of the planet. The colonists, along with the refugees, divided into teams that worked tirelessly through the night. Blinding lights of lures emanated from every corner of the settlement, fogging the surrounding area in an illusion of a thriving city when, in reality, they hustled to hide every last soul below ground. Just as shadows crept closer, whispers of determination filled the air, a collective spirit binding them closer together as their resilience burgeoned. The first barrage of laser cannon fire split the night, sending trembling vibrations through the ground. "We need to buy time," Alaric shouted among the chaos. He, along with a group of volunteers, turned to face the oncoming storm, taking positions atop the surrounding hills, capable of seeing the encroaching fleet. In the battered remnants of what had been an old trading post, Eldon locked his gaze with the surrounding Yelrians. "We must unite," he commanded. "Together we will forge our destiny. Let our thoughts and hearts become one." The ancient leader raised his hands, and suddenly a hush fell over the crowd. In that instant, their connection became palpable, visions of liberty rippled through the cluster, jolting the collective spirit into a singular force. Chapter 6: Empathy Beyond Combat. The ensuing battle was a chaotic dance of raw determination. Flares lit the sky as Elara led forces underground. They shielded the weakest and youngest, amplifying the refugees' defense with makeshift weapons flaunted by the cunning use of technology and whatever they had scavenged over the months. On the surface, Alaric and his small task force withstood the initial waves of attack. The Dominion's ships hovered like shadows against the brilliant hues of war lights, cannons preparing to strike. Yet, every pulse of their weaponry met with the resilience and bravery of those who wished to keep their sanctuary intact. Eldon and the oracles guided paths of energy through their connections, the Yelrians channeling their telepathic gift. The flashes of the attacks merged into a powerful ball of light, deflecting much of the firepower hurled at them. Elara, ever observant, harbored newfound respect for everything around her, for the unexpected alliances they forged amidst such despair. The realization struck her deeply: it was never simply humanity securing mercy, they had become a beacon of unity through a shared desire for peace. Together they grew stronger than they'd ever known. In the final minutes, a surprising diversion sparked with the emergence of vessels from sympathetic systems previously contacted. They stood as allies to the colonists' cause. Overwhelmed by confrontation, their arrival dispelled the imminent threat, unfolding like a banner of hope. Chapter 7: Unity and Endurance. In the aftermath of battle, the atmosphere was heavy with a bittersweet taste. The Dominion fleet had retreated in chaos, a significant victory carved out of desperation and unyielding unity. Those that had gathered there now resolved to rebuild their home deeper underground, with a vision of making the Last Asylum stronger than ever before. The colonists thrived alongside their new neighbors, narratives and stories evolving from their shared efforts. Eldon had become an emblem of hope, guiding emotional healing as survivors confronted their traumas. In time, they developed comprehensive systems to prevent further incursions, continually innovating together. Weeks later, Elara stood on the precipice of what had transformed into a bustling sanctuary, filled with lives that once flickered dimly now glowing with vibrant promise. We may not know what tomorrow holds, she spoke to the assembly of her community, humans and refugees alike, gathered under the alien sky. But as long as we stand together, united by our compassion and will, we'll forge a future bright enough to outshine the darkness. Roars of agreement erupted, their voices rising as one, a chorus that echoed into the void, a promise written among the stars. Epilogue, a beacon. Months turned into years at the Last Asylum, a place of hope luminescent on the galactic map. Media captured both the human colonists' bravery and the creativity of the refugees, broadcasting across the imperceptible boundaries between systems. Victory bred solidarity, and whispers of human compassion spread beyond Last 7, encouraging others to stand against tyranny. Far beyond the protective embrace of the asylum, as stories of unity traversed the galaxy, the galactic empire began trembling beneath the uplifted calls for justice. Together, humanity and their alien allies had not only written a new story, they ignited a revolution of empathy, witnessing the blossoming of peace. In a universe where division often reigned supreme, the Last Asylum stood tall, a potent symbol of hope and strength founded in understanding, echoing through the vastness of space. True strength, as they ultimately found, lay not just in technology but in the unity of hearts forged from compassion and resilience.